points have been split at the Emirates. Arsenal won, Man City won. But did Arteta and Arsenal force Guardiola City to play in a manner that they've never played before? Was it such an imperious, dominant display that it forced one of the best managers in history to totally adapt their philosophy? Not quite. In this video, what I'm going to do is discuss the narratives that have followed the game, provide my opinions on them, probably debunk them as well, outline what both sides did well in the game, what both sides did poorly in the game, and for City in particular, what were the little small details that sadly cost them the victory. The first thing to note, and the first thing that I need to address, is this idea that Arsenal was so dominant and so imperious that City were forced into this really tepid, compact, defensive display and shape. Whilst it's true to say that Arsenal did, at times, particularly in the second half, force City to be more defensive than they would have liked to have been, and Pep even said after the match, I don't want to play like this. The reality is that whilst that's true, the thing that's being missed by a lot of people is that that was also by design. Arsenal in their 4-4-2, we'll get on to Arsenal and their lack of creativity in the centre in particular. City have played a 4-1-4-1 every single match so far this season off ball. It's either a 4-3-3 or a 4-1-4-1, depending on the level of the opposition. It wasn't a 4-1-4-1 against Arsenal. It was a 4-4-2. Now, what does that mean? This is a fundamentally far more defensive and compact shape and structure than what City were doing for the entirety of the season thus far. It was often Bernardo and Haaland leading the press, sometimes Foden and Bernardo would rotate and Foden would help lead the press, but generally it was Bernardo. But either way, this was by design, and it was evident as early as like the first couple of minutes. Quite clearly, there's the midfield four, there's the forward two of Haaland and Bernardo. Arsenal didn't force City to change their shape. City were the ones who decided to change their shape. Again, I'll repeat, that doesn't mean that Arsenal didn't force City to be more defensive than they may have wanted, but this idea that City wanted to come to the Emirates and wanted to press really intensely and wanted to be really open and expansive is ultimately, objectively, false. This is also illustrated in the pressing intensity. So once again, really early in the match, just the first minute, Raya receives the ball here from Gabriel. Pay attention to the time, 1:06. Do City deploy and commit to a really intense high press to try to force Arsenal into an error, to try to get onto the front foot? No, they let Raya have the ball for 11 seconds. It was quite comical watching this because it was almost as if Arsenal were expecting City to do that. Like Raya was just like playing keep ball and City was just like watching him like, yeah, that's nice. That's nice. You keep doing that. That's also reflected in the pressing intensity data. So one example where City were trying to assert themselves in the game, even before they conceded the goal against Spurs, the Arsenal game conversely. Look at the averages for City. Again, this means passes per defensive action. So the more passes you're allowing, in theory, the less intense your press is. It's not a perfect stat, but it's a helpful illustration. And look at how few passes City are allowing Spurs until like really late in the game. I mean, the first half in particular, 22. City allowing 22 passes per defensive action. They just weren't trying to press. And I think that's because Pep accepted and acknowledged, because of like the schedule, because of the fact there was only a couple days in between the Napoli game and the Arsenal game, it wouldn't have been reasonable for him to set up his side like this. We are going to go into the issues with Arsenal's creativity in midfield or lack thereof, but first of all I do want to touch on the goal that City scored, and I'll be touching on the goal that Arsenal scored as well and outlining like what were the errors. Look at Calafiori's positioning. He's basically at left wing. Not fundamentally a mistake, that's just how Calafiori plays. This is going to be a weakness of the shape that you go for if you play really attacking fullbacks. We as City fans know that more than anyone. Sometimes you will get caught out. This is one of those instances. In those cases, you have to be strong in the second balls. And with Zubimendi, with Rice, with Moreno, I was under the assumption that Arsenal would win the second ball battle for the vast majority. The first half in particular, they just didn't. Look at this situation. So Reinders has played it out to Zubimendi. Aerial battles here. Bernardo forces Rice to not have control of it. Foden then nips in, wins that duel there. Goes up into the air. Bernardo once again, this time up against Moreno, wins that second ball. And look at the gradual movement of Reinders here as well. This is really clever from Reinders. So the challenges are all happening in the centre. Reinders is sort of realising that, if I gamble here and take a risk here, I can actually make a little cheeky run in behind if my teammates win it. That's what happens. Rodri intervenes, plays it to Haaland, and now all of a sudden, Haaland's got the ball, and it's fantastic. Reinders is still continuing his forward movement, and now Reinders is on it. It's fantastic footwork by Haaland. It's great defensive work by Bernardo and Foden in particular, who, as I say, they were really good off-ball. And we'll get on to Doku, but he was a monster off-ball as well. This is all lots of good stuff from City, but I am going to criticise Saliba here. Because someone tell me, what is Saliba's function here? This is a question I like to ask whenever there's like a mistake from like a positioning point of view. What is Saliba's function? Someone tell me. I don't think he can. I think he's offering literally nothing here. What he needs to be doing, because he can clearly see, like his centre-back partner, Gabriel's pushed up high to not give Haaland any space. So Saliba should really be like around there to help support Gabriel, because look at how high Timber is. Look at how high up all of Arsenal players are. They need to pin City in right now. If you lose the ball here, then Reinders is going to be running at you 1v1. That's exactly what happens. And Saliba should be here where he's able to intercept that ball and challenge Reinders. Ultimately, he's not there, so he doesn't. I don't know if he's like thinking Gabriel will bail me out and he'll get back and protect me, but you're not going to outpace Erling Haaland. That is literally never going to happen. The way to the pass is perfect from Reinders. The finish is wonderful as well. I would be fuming. I'd be furious at the starting 11 that Arteta punted for. You can see from the start of the season that City are frail, they aren't necessarily themselves, and yet he plays a midfield of Rice, Zubimendi, Moreno. No Eze to be seen on the pitch. No Martinelli either. No Saka, fine, he's out injured. Not starting Eze is insane. Starting Trossard is insane. Especially when you know that right-back is City's weakest area. We don't have a right-back at the club right now. Give Kusanov or Nunes or Lewis a proper test with Eze. Instead, they made it so easy for us with Trossard. There was no left-sided outlet for Arsenal. All game, their best one was Calafiori. So that wasn't good enough. This is from the first half. It did improve in the second half when Arteta acknowledged his mistake. Look at how much little activity there is in Zone 14, arguably the most dangerous area in football. Nothing here going on. Lots of sideways stuff, like one forwards, but it's really small. It's not really going anywhere. It just wasn't good enough, and they set up so negatively and in such a weird manner. And I get that Arteta's retort to that in the interview was, well, I played that midfield against Bilbao, and you didn't have a problem there. But you didn't play Trossard with that midfield, mate, did you? You played Eze. The only proper outlet in that entire first half was Madueke. Aside from that, it was a whole lot of nothing. Because again, you had Trossard trying to take on Kusanov. That was a battle that he was never going to win. Sometimes Calafiori did his inverting thing and that was cute, whatever. Shout out to O'Reilly, who did fantastically against Madueke and then did brilliantly against Saka in the second half as well. Shout out to Kusanov and Nunes for dealing with Trossard and then a bit of Trossard and then Saka towards the latter end in the second half. And shout out to City's entire defence. But Arsenal were just not good going forwards, and there was a chasm of creativity in the centre, as illustrated by this, until Eze came on. No idea how he didn't start. But also, as I've just said, out wide, there was literally nothing. 14 attacks to generate only 0.3 expected goals is a madness when you have the vast majority of the possession. That works out as like an average of like a 2% chance to score per attack, essentially. It's ridiculous. Again, this is inflated by the goal, of course, but outside of that, there was basically nothing from the centre. The right side was their only true outlet, and O'Reilly was fantastic in the game. So if I'm an Arsenal fan, I'm fuming at how they set up. Far too negative. Wasn't remedied until the second half. That first half may as well have not happened. That's how irrelevant that first half was from an offensive perspective. And again, this idea that I'm going to push back on, that Arsenal dominated, where were all your chances? I can only remember Donnarumma making one save to his near post, which I would expect him to save. I'd say it was a great save. People have said no, it was only a good save, but I'm going to say it's a great save. That was the only one. Aside from that, Donnarumma had nothing to do. They just resorted to crosses, and they weren't particularly good at their crosses. So, odd from Arsenal. Just side note, briefly, I know that this isn't the game to judge it off, but we need to sort out our right side at some point, whether that's starting a Bob in a game like this, or hopefully whether it's just like getting a right back, because I don't think I've ever seen that from a City side. Again, I know it was a very defensive operation from City, but that's a little bit mad to me. So, and we all know we need a right back, so or just some sort of right-sided outlet, certainly, preferably a right back. So that was like the general overarching story of the game. As I say, City in their compact 4-4-2, making it really tricky for Arsenal. The dark arts, whatever you want to do. It was informed by fatigue. It was informed by the context of the week and also by the context of the opposition, because we know that Arsenal are in a better position than us right now. What were the small details that cost City the win. This is wonderful by Doku, and I could have picked so many examples of Doku being sensational in this game. He was my man of the match by a fair margin. I'm loving how he's been playing the past few games. Nicks it off Trossard. He's up against Saka. Blazes past him. Not good enough defensively from Saka. So within the space of, what is that, 5 seconds? He's gone from penalty box to the halfway line, dragging City up the pitch. He's got Saliba who wants him out wide. Saka and Saliba don't do well enough to get tight to him. Wonderful ball to Haaland. A great run from Haaland. And this is a goal every single time. Haaland has to just pass it to Foden. That's what you have to do. Foden's got to tap in. It's 2-0. That might kill the game off. No idea why he shoots. Poor decision from Haaland. Poor decision. He scored the goal, of course, and we can applaud him for that. But we also have to be fair. That was a poor decision from him. Another poor decision, which arguably cost City the game. The Reinders in the first instance, 90th minute, of course, does really well, wraps it round to Rodri, continues his run. This is all correct so far, but now he has to go left out to Savio. But he just bundles into Rice. He delays it far too much. In fairness to Nico, this is a foul, but I would still say that the control wasn't really good enough. But it is worth noting that that should have been a foul. Let's all be honest. As it is, that was a mistake. And you look how shattered Rodri is. He can't even get to the ball. Now, that was a mistake. Sure. But Arsenal are still in their defensive third. It's not like you've just given away the ball in the penalty box. It's not an egregious error. And City are still fine. The problem is not with the defensive line's positioning. The key focus has been on that, and I don't really understand why. Because if you want your defensive line to be more here-ish, like this sort of vibe, they're around there, aren't they, the defensive line? So if you want it here rather than here, what you need is your midfield to be here. Clearly, they're actually here. So if you want the defensive line to be here, I should pretend that Bernardo was at left wing back, whatever. If you want them here, look at all of the space now that has been generated. Look at the massive gaps between your midfield line and your defensive line. You can't do that. The only reason that the defensive line is as high as it was because the midfield wasn't getting back. If you want to argue that it was a fault of the high line, first of all, I don't agree. But secondly, if you're talking about the defensive high line, you are barking up the wrong tree, and you have to really be asking questions of the midfield defensive line. A lot of the midfielders had just committed themselves. Again, look, that's our defensive midfielder, for example. Regardless, let's park that to one side for a moment. Ake should do better here from Martinelli. He has to do better. He has to block off the run. Guardiola does really well. Fair play to Guardiola. He forces Martinelli out wide. He's tight to him. Martinelli doesn't have control of the ball either. This is a bouncing ball. It's a very good ball by Eze, but the ball is still bouncing. It's not under his control. In this position here, it is not possible to score because once again, the ball is bouncing. Martinelli's not in control of it. Guardiola is forcing him out wide to the left. Martinelli can't go centrally because Guardiola is a human being and has atoms, and he's physically stopping him from doing so. This never, ever results in a goal. It is impossible to score from this position, given all that context, until you consider the positioning of the goalkeeper. And unfortunately, this is an error from Donnarumma in respect of his positioning. As I asked earlier with Saliba, what is Donnarumma's function here? What is it that he is offering? He is neither close to Martinelli, he's also not defending his line. But Nobbins, to be fair, you just said that it's not the fault of the defensive line because of how high up the midfield line is. The reason why I can't accept that as an explanation is because Donnarumma's starting position is not here. He's not even on the screen right now. He's in his box at this point, and the ball hasn't even landed on the floor. And he can clearly see the flight of the ball. So he knows that he's not going to be able to get to it. Therefore, he has to go, right, I'm not going to get to the ball, therefore I have to back off. So he hasn't committed to the sweep. Correct decision. In which case you have to back off. Here to here. Staying still. Not going backwards, just staying still. No movement, staying still. Now there's movement, but it's sideways. He's still not retreating, he's still not going backwards. And I'll ask again, what is the function of the goalkeeper in this position? He's not tight enough to prevent Martinelli from taking a shot. He's not on his line to protect it. I'm forcing you into a situation where the only chance you can score is by chipping me. If Donnarumma is here, a goal is not conceded because you can't chip a goalkeeper who is literally on their line like that. It's not possible from the position Martinelli's in anyway. And sadly, it is an error. And sadly, that is ultimately why City conceded the goal. So I don't really care how you want to apportion the blame. And hopefully all agree that the main mistake in that sequence, sadly, was the positioning of the goalkeeper. That does not detract from his good performance overall. Ultimately, it did cost us a goal in the last minute of the game. It's just small little mistakes like that that hopefully City can iron out as the season progresses. But for me, there were a lot more positives than than negatives, and I'm not totally down on the performance, to be honest with you. I'm pretty chill about it. That was the video. Hope you enjoyed it. Make sure to leave a like on the video because it's free. Help support your boy. Thank you so much for all the support on the channel recently. I've been loving it. I'll catch you next time.